Welcome to Here's the Deal, where we educate, elevate, and inspire entrepreneurs. On Here's the Deal podcast, we bring 30 years of business banking experience to you. And we tell the real stories of business owners, the challenges, the lessons, and the wins that define their journey. Through Here's the Deal video marketing, we help you share your story with the world, creating high-quality video content that's easy, comfortable, and connected, because the story sells, not the numbers. Here's the Deal Production is a coaching, consulting, and production division designed to help entrepreneurs, business owners, and industry experts launch, grow, and professionally manage your podcast platforms without the technical barriers that often prevent the execution. You bring us a story, we'll refine the vision. Every entrepreneur has a story worth telling, and then Here's the Deal, that's where that story comes to life. Hey everybody, what's going on? It's a little bit of a different show today, to where something came up earlier, and I was going to do a completely different show, and just had to pivot because this one, I thought this one was like really, really important. Made me think of, who are you without your business? Okay, I was going to go a completely different route, but this just came up in a topic. Actually, I was doing the show with Eric, and I was like, yeah, who are you without your business? You know what I mean? Because I think, the question I was thinking is like, okay, think about this for a minute. If I took your business away tomorrow, gone, done, wiped out, who would you be on Monday morning? Think about that. All right. I think, this is myself included. I'm talking to myself a little bit here. You got to make sure I check myself on this one. So I don't think a lot of owners can actually answer that question without like flinching, like, whoa, like, wait a minute, wait, what? My business is gone? Now what? Right? But the business isn't the problem. I think we have an identity problem. Okay. And that can cost you money. Okay. It can hurt your business. All right. There's a whole thing of, I am the business. Okay. Yeah. I mean, you have to be like really involved in it. To a certain extent, it's your passion, it's your baby, especially when you're first starting out like that. And it's, you're infused in the company, you know what I mean? But you also got to kind of, and think about this for a minute, when you're that injected, when you're that involved in the business, if you lose a deal, you're going to take that personally, right? If you have a bad month, you failed, right? You're going to think, oh my God, I failed, right? And if somebody gives you some feedback, you're going to get all like defensive and feel like it's like a personal attack, And if the business isn't growing quite the way you want it to, as fast as you want it to go, you're just thinking like you're just not enough, right? And that's not leadership. Okay. You're almost like being held hostage by like your own business, and your business should really be, more like the vehicle you drive, not a costume you can't take off. You know what I mean? And again, I'm kind of preaching myself a little bit too here. I try to be cognizant of this, but at the same time, I know I get pretty deep into it itself. One thing I remember, oh my God, I was in banking, and I'm a real loyalty guy, right? When I say I'm going to do something, when I say I got your 6, don't look back. You don't have to. I got it. It's covered, right? And I expect my clients to do that with me, right? Because I'm doing it for them. I'm going all out. It was one trucking company. I got them started. I gave them money when nobody else would. When I left the bank that I was working at, that I got them their initial money, I kept in contact with them. I said, hey, I'm going to go over here. Okay. I'm going to even have more tools available for you. I'm going to have more things available. Stay with me. And one of the owners had health problems, right? I was calling him. I was like, I was staying in contact with him, right? Through the whole thing. And then when the guy got back on his feet and this, that, and the other, I contacted them. They finally decided to contact me back. A guy was letting me know like progress of his health and stuff, which was great. But then when I started talking back to get more on the business side, I started getting like, they're like ghosting me. They're like, oh yeah, we went with another bank. Wow. That was a kick in the balls. Right. And, I'm still kind of like, still sometimes I think about that. I'm just like, yeah, that sucked. Yeah. But that's the thing. Business has got to be business. And if you can't get to that point, if you can't get away now, I've walked away from it now, but for a while there, that really pissed me the fuck off. Like I was fucking angry. Okay. So, and that can have an effect on the next client. That can have an effect in your home. That can have an effect with your friends. Cause I was really fucking pissed about that. It ended up being a big, I got him a smaller deal, and then I'm doing this big monster deal with somebody else. No loyalty, none. Right? Just you got to understand it. People, you have a certain level. Just know that your customers aren't going to do that. I still try to say, hey, you should be loyal to me because like I helped you get started, kind of thing. I stuck by you and whatever. I'm still working something. That's the thing. You gotta. The business cannot be your whole life. Okay, it's just gotta. You have to kind of separate yourself from it. And there's a thing called an ego tax, right? And you don't really know about it till you can like put a dollar figure on it, and you gotta keep. It's like when you start a company, and it was funny because we just talked about this with the taco shop, right? They got rid of products that and they didn't want to because they started out with these certain products, right? But they're like, you know what? It's not where the company's going. It was very smart what they did. They're like, hey, the video is where it's at. We're sticking with that. And they got rid of some products, and some people really like those products. Raul was one. He goes, yeah, I really like that one product, but they got rid of it. But it was really smart. It was brilliant. Okay, that's a lot of people have a problem with that. They say, no. I started the company with this product, and we got to keep it, even though it's killing them. You know what I mean? That's where the ego tax comes in. That's where you lose money. This happens all the time. Business owners refuse to delegate because nobody can do it like me. Wow. Like if that doesn't scream ego all day long to you, right? Yeah. Now, you are right to a certain aspect. But if you train your people right, okay, and if you mentor them correctly, okay, and quite frankly, you got to hire the right people. Not everybody, when you hire people, again, we've talked about this in other episodes, things like that, they have to buy into the vision. Okay. They have to buy in, 100% buy in. Again, because if they're there for a paycheck, they're going to be there for a paycheck, gone tomorrow. Right. And you spend all this time trying to mentor them, things like that. And you put your time and energy into the wrong people. So you may not grow as fast as you want, but you have to slow down and hire the right people, not just hire people. You got to hire the right people who can pick up, there's a certain standard, okay, that you're going to do something. Let's just say me with like video editing or something, right? Like I have a certain vision I want it to look like, okay? Maybe there's a little, it's a little different. They can't, I don't care how they got there as long as, the product is done right. I have to be willing to, maybe accept some of that. As long as it's not, hey, no, this is what I want to look at. There's certain like, no, that looks like shit. No, we're not going there. Okay, do it again, kind of thing. But you got to show them how. Here's how I do it. I can't expect you to make a video like I make. I can't expect my kids to make sauce like I make sauce if I don't show them how to do it. Right. And I started with the basics. I started on peeling garlic, the whole thing, chopping it, and, how to, brown the meat, how to make the meatballs. You got to start the base level. So if you got the right person, you can show them how you do this certain thing, the certain process, and let them build it. And then let them do it. Let them get their hands dirty. Let them get in there, because the only way somebody's going to learn is if they're in it. Right. And then when you say, okay, they got it. And then, but they might come back to you, like somebody might come back to me like on a video. Hey, okay, this is how you taught me how to do these videos, but this new tool just came out, and it's going to make it easier, faster, better, or whatever. Be willing to say, okay, hey, like I said, you hired them for a purpose. Let them do their job. Okay, so be willing to take your ego out of that, right? Don't be so rigid. Like I said, it's by them saying, hey, I got a different way, I want to try it. Let them try it. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, just say, hey, you know what? Okay, well, hey, we tried it that way. This way works. Let's keep doing it this way. But hey, at least some innovative things might come along to where it's, hey, you know what? That really was a lot faster, and we can produce more. Cool. Let's do that, right? You have to. Some people will just, if they think something's going wrong, or if they think, maybe, a certain product's not selling, right? They don't walk away from it. They don't pivot. They double down. Oh, if we just spend more money, it'll work. Maybe not. You have to understand that, hey, this particular product, I don't care if you started the company with it, okay. Eric says all the time, what got you here isn't going to get you there. If that product has hit its ceiling and it's not getting the returns that it used to, maybe it's time to get rid of it. You know what? Move on, evolve, things like that. And you cannot burn bridges with employees who are willing to tell you the truth. Say, hey, this process isn't working. Okay, it's harder for us to do. But don't they can't just have a bitch fest, right? They can't just come and say, oh, well, I don't like doing it this way. Okay, what's your solution? Like I said, you never want to come to an NCO and say, Sergeant, blah blah. I'm like, well, what the fuck are you going to do to fix it? If you don't like doing it, why are you coming to me bitching? Like no. If you come to me, I even got the knife hand working. Jesus Christ! If you come to me with a problem, you better have a fucking solution behind it. That's just automatic. It just happens. That's ingrained in my DNA. No, so don't you can't just be a bit. I don't like doing it. Well, then find another job. Number one, no, see ya. But if they say, hey, look, we're doing it this way. I want to try it this way. I think this would make it more. You know what? Let them try it. Like I said, let it do it. I mean, now if they want to change an ingredient in your sauce. Okay, time out. Nah, bro. No. There's certain bottom lines, certain things are gonna happen. Like, no, we're not deviating from the recipe of the sauce at all. I don't give a shit how much it costs. Doesn't matter. Okay, but this is the bottom. But certain things, but you gotta let them. You gotta give them like some kind of leeway. You know what I mean? And it's got to be something that, again, it's costing you money even if you don't see it. So I just want you to kind of pull back for a second and say, is there something in my business that I'm just a little too, I'm too committed to it. Like, even though I know it's not working. My wife and I were just having a conversation this morning. We get up and, I get up in the morning, I pray, I read my Bible. She wakes up, I make her coffee, we sit down, we have our quality time. We're sitting there, especially like last night, my son graduated high school, big night, he's going off to college, but I was explaining some things that I think, in my business, like, hey, I think I need to change this. There's a couple things I need to understand that, hey, I'm not the best person for this. And in order for the company to succeed, I have to bring in some outside help. And I'm willing to admit that. I took my ego right out of it. I said, you know what? I'm gonna start looking for some people that can do this better than I can, because I know where my geniuses are and I know where my geniuses aren't. And it's one thing which I thought was part of my genius is not. And I realize that now, and I said, okay. I said, ego check, back. All right, let's understand this. If I want this company to succeed the way I want it to, I understand that I'm stopping it from happening. So let me pull back and let me try to bring in some help and try to make this thing go better than I can do it in this particular area. And this will happen. So I want you guys to call this a Sunday night test, if you will, right? I want you guys to answer this question honestly. Can you take that full week off of work without checking your email? Can you do that? Personally, right now, me, at this juncture where I'm at right now, I cannot. And I'll admit it, I can't. But it's coming, and I'm working on it. And I'm intentionally working on that. But I personally will tell you I cannot do that at this moment, but it is coming. Okay? Here's another question you want to ask yourself, right? You do a little diagnosis test. Do you have at least 2 friends that are close to you that don't work in your same industry? I fortunately do, which is great. So I have some friends that aren't entrepreneurs. They don't have their own business. They're not in, podcasting or video or anything like that. So I got some other people that are outside of this that I can actually go and hang out with. I'm not so involved in it that all the people I hang out with are just podcasters and video people. Thank God. Excuse me. And then, can you describe yourself in 60 seconds without mentioning your business? Hard, isn't it? Yeah, that's another one. Was kind of, it made me think about, you know what? That's okay. You gotta think about these things for a minute. Now, again, this is I'm usually pretty good about this one, but when was the last time you said you were wrong in a meeting? I'm pretty willing to admit, unless I didn't see what I did wrong. I would say if I did something, if something comes up, I thought, you know what? Yep, that's on me. I jacked that up. So I'm usually not afraid to at least say that. So at least I got that one. I think okay, but sometimes even like my wife will point out, hey, ooh, yeah, I'm sorry about that. Didn't know. My bad. And like I said, if 3 or more of these hit you hard, then this episode I hope, gave you some value. I hope. Now you go back, you pull back, and ask yourself those questions. Okay? As I said, hopefully you'll get at least that out of this episode, if nothing else. Here's where you can test yourself again. Here's a conviction versus ego test, because there's a thin line between the two. Conviction listens to the data and adjusts, right? But ego starts, trying to prove a point. So think about that. Okay. When you, so when you have a product that isn't working or isn't selling, you have a service that isn't working, that isn't selling, are you going to try to make as I made this thing and I'm going to do it and it's going to happen? Or are you going to pull back and say, the data it's not there. ROI is not there, closing rate's not there. We gotta pivot. We gotta take a look at this and just say, And when somebody gives you some tough feedback, do you get curious or do you get defensive? If you get defensive, that's ego, right? And so that's where you got to say, okay, which one's the driver here? Okay, if somebody gives you some feedback, hey. Somebody gave me, say, hey, this video, especially like my wife, she's like, hey, I don't like the way this video looked this way. And I tell you, my first reaction, I did get pissed off. I was like, wait a minute. And then I thought about it. I'm like, okay, well, hey, and thank God. And she was right. And I was wrong. And I can admit that. Well, if you're married, guys, you understand you're already like 99% wrong anyway. But that's a whole different story, whole different show, right? So she was like, "Hey, I don't like the way this looks. This didn't look right. Okay, I think you need to redo this." And I did, and I went and I redid it. I showed it to her again. She's like, "Okay, that's better." She was clean up one more time. I think there's some, and I did. I don't think I got it quite the way she wanted it or she thought it should look. But I think we found that middle ground. Like, I was happy with it. She was okay with it. And it was, quite honestly, was the best I could do. And I'm just being real about that. So she got to a point where, like, okay, yeah, that's, I think that'll work. Was it her idea of perfection? No. Was it the best thing that I could produce at this particular moment? Yes, it was. So we went with it. But at first, she was right, because the first version I did not clearly convey the message. So I'm glad I went back and re-scripted it and redid it to where it was a lot cleaner. So I'm thankful for that. But you got to really, if somebody gives you some feedback and you start getting defensive, it's your ego, and you got to check that, right? And here, it's always that test. Like, if something happens and you can just pause and wait and not react, right? If you react, okay, ego. If you can pull back, analyze what's going on, take a second, then make a decision, that's leadership. Okay. And I am a highly reactive person. I will, right? I'll tell you that flat out. Like, cause I just see a problem, fix a problem. Okay. But I, even, especially as I'm getting older, slow down. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. That military concept keeps coming back. Slow is, even in this. And that's the thing my friend Colin had to point out to me. You know the rule. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. He goes, when you're in military mode, you get it. When you're in business mode, you're not getting it yet. Interject that into your business. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. And I'm like, good idea. I hadn't thought about it, but he was right. And I'm like, okay, time to. I got to practice that in my business as well as I would if I was still in the military. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast, right? So, again, right? You're the founder of the company. Okay, cool. All right. What are you outside of that? Ask yourself that question. For me, I'm a husband, right? I'm a father. I'm trained to be a deacon in my church, right? We're doing things in the community, right? I'm a brother. I'm a veteran. I was an athlete. I still train at the gym. Not quite the athlete I used to be, but I'm still training at the gym. I'm still staying active and trying to stay in pretty good physical shape and things like that. I'm a friend to some people, not all, but some. And I try to be a mentor in this. I try to help people along, things like that, because about my each one teach one kind of like mentality and things. And I'm a neighbor too, to my community and things like that. So ask yourself those questions. What are you outside of the founder, right? Because again, like we talked about, it should be a vehicle for you, not a costume, right? Not something that you can't be on you like 24 hours a day. You're the founder from, let's say, 7 to 5, right? After that, you got to have something outside of that. Be a husband, be a wife, be a mom, be a dad, be a leader in your community. Okay. Do something outside of your business. Okay. To ground yourself a little more. So I think when founders forget that, again, the marriage cracks. When you're addicted to your job and I could do this job literally 24 hours a day. I mean, if it came down to it, there's gotta be boundaries, man. You got, like I said, you got kids, man. That time with your kids is not coming back. My son just graduated high school last night. I mean, college. My daughter graduated last year. Okay. They're growing up. My daughter's, 19 now. Son's going to be 18. They're not 6 and 7 anymore. That time ain't coming back. They're never going to be 6 and 7 again. They're never going to be 17 and 18 again, or 19. They're not going to be this anymore. Be present, be in that, right? Because it ain't coming back. The business will be there, God willing. That's God willing. The business will be there. The deals are going to come and go, things like that. But that time with your your family or going out, hanging, with some friends, maybe going to play some golf or something like that. You gotta give yourself something, or else you're gonna burn out, man. You're gonna run on empty. And when that happens, everything suffers. And especially if your health starts going, you start having heart problems, high blood pressure, this, that, and the third. We've said this on many occasions, where it says, in business, you have many problems. You lose your health, you got one problem. And that may not come back. Okay. Business can come, business can go. You lose your health, and God forbid, you have a heart attack, you have a stroke. It's game over for real. Like, there is you're not respawning into the game. You're done. You're cooked. So, you guys said, don't burn yourself out like that. Don't run on empty like that. So, and I'm talking about some really dark shit here, but it's real. This happens to people. This is happening every day. It's happening way before this show. Going to happen way after this show. People get so engaged in their business, and their business is like that. I mean, it's their DNA. It's their this or that, and this and the third. And then God, they go to sell it, and they got nothing. They have nothing outside of that, And especially if the business folds. Let's say the business folds and didn't end the way you wanted it to, or, like I said, your kids don't want nothing to do with your business because, like, oh my God, but mom works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I don't want any of that shit. I don't want that for me, or whatever. Like, I have other person, or they have just, hey, you have other. Okay, my kids say, hey, they told me flat out they didn't want to be in banking, and they didn't want to do anything I'm doing with the podcast. I'm like, you know what? Hey, it's your life. You go, you do you. You ain't living my life. I'm not going to try to live your life. You do you. You got to have, but you as the founder, and you got to have something outside of this thing. Okay. Because it does. It's gonna. If you don't, like I said, people get depressed. Divorces happen. They start drinking. You know what I mean? It's a downward, nasty spiral. It can really happen. So, if you don't have any identity outside of your company, and it gets, you sell it or it gets closed or something like that. I mean, it can be like devastating. I don't care if, you just started a company and, you're not, your exit strategy is, have an exit strategy, but make sure, even if it's 20 years down the road, okay, start getting your own identity today. All right. You got to really start pulling back from this thing a little bit. And I know it's super hard when you're just starting out. And, things like, it's like, you got a job. You think you got a job at 24 hours a day. Guess what? It's going to be there tomorrow. You know what? Clock out. Go eat dinner with your family. Go hang out with your kids. Go, talk to your wife or your husband. I keep saying this like go talk to your wife, husband, spouse, significant other, whatever you want to call it. Do that. Okay. Unplug, dude. Unplug, right? But do it now. Don't wait until after you shut the business down to go try to find out who you are. You know what I mean? Then it's too late. You got to try to find your identity now, today, after the show. Start trying to find out who you are. Okay, me personally, outside of the business, I like to go shooting. I like golf. I work out. I don't work out like I used to, but at least I try to, go work out because, I try to stay in shape and make my, get my mind, body, mental connection still working, things like that. I volunteer at my church, a lot. So, I got something outside of this, and I try to be cognizant of being like a husband, my wife, and father of my kids, So, but I'm still a lot about this though, because like I said, I will see somebody, hey, we need to talk about some, we need to set up a meeting. I'll hit somebody up anywhere, but at the same time, I do have my moments like, okay, especially at, night, I'm like, I turn the computer off, we're done. It's a wrap. You got to get there. Because like I said, if you try to build your identity before you close a company, you're going to, you'll have something to look forward to. Hey, you know what? I'm going to look forward to traveling with my wife when we shut this thing down. I've built enough of a relationship. And, this is one thing, again, I try to be cognizant of. Like, I try to tell my wife all the time. It's like, you were my wife before you were the mother of my children. You understand that, right? So I want to have a relationship with my wife. Okay, kids, great. We got kids. Awesome. We parent them. That's cool. But there still needs to be an us in this, right? So I look forward to doing stuff with my wife after, we shut this thing down, or I sell it, or I go on the consulting side and somebody takes, whatever, however that looks. I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, I love going and playing golf. So I'm looking at, some people are like, oh, I can't stand. Well, okay, well, go build a muscle car or something. I don't know. Go find something outside of, okay, I want to build muscle cars. Cool. They used to do that kind of stuff too, but like, I wouldn't do that anymore. It's way too damn expensive now. But no, just go find something that like I said, what really help your burnout? Volunteer at your church, man. Get involved in your community. Then you'll see some real issues going on. Then you see some people that got some real problems. Okay, and you'll be like, you know what? These problems aren't so bad. I think I can do this. And if you have a passion for it, I said, people go out. They coach football teams and soccer teams and things like that. They try to mentor kids and things like that. Do that, and realize that God, take God's sake, please take your wife out to dinner, or go out with your husband, or, and turn the damn phone off. Okay. If you have little kids and they're, young and you got a babysitter, okay, that's one thing. But like, my kids are old enough now. You know what? We turn the phone, like we're not even looking at it. They're old enough. They can handle it. We raised them. If the house burns down, oh well. We got insurance. We're okay. But you know what I mean. But be there. Get outside. Get outside of your business and be present. And I can't. I don't think I can really stress too much more than that, because it's coming up. It's been coming up a lot. It's been coming up a lot. So it made me pivot the whole show. It hit me that hard that I was like, man, yeah, I think this is something I really got to talk about. So it's important to be all in on your business, especially when you're starting out, no doubt. Okay. But understand, you are not your business. Your business is not you. Okay. I know, I said, I still am working on this, but I think I'm starting to, get a pretty decent grip on it. But I know there's a lot of people, like I said, they cannot stop talking about their business for 30 seconds. And it's like, dude, unplug. Be present. I'm out. Here in closing up the show, and here's the deal. Just want to give all honor, glory, and praise to my Lord Jesus Christ, who, saved my soul and gives me the ability to do this show. Without him, I couldn't do anything. Also want to give thanks to my family. My wife, my kids support me doing this and, backing me up. I couldn't do any of this without them also. Got to thank the sponsors, of course. Everybody that, supports the show. And, of course, the fans. The people that subscribe to the show. I wouldn't do any of this without you, because it wouldn't be a show. So just want to say thank you all very much. Continue to, educate and elevate. Get out there, pursue your passions, pursue your dreams.